Welcome to Musée des Beaux-Arts Le Locle. I'm very happy and proud to welcome you to this very special event as part of our exhibition program, la Triennale de l'Art Imprimé Contemporaine, the Triennial of Contemporary Art Printmaking. This is the 11th edition. It started in the 90s, also because printed matter and printmaking art is really part of the DNA of the collection of this museum. And I'm really also happy that among the speakers there are people that used to work and contributed to the previous triennials. I really thank Lawrence Schmidt-Lindy to be among us as well. Just a few words about the triennial. In the past, it was really a collective exhibition that aimed at exploring the state of the art and all the new technologies and different processes. And as I was reading the beautiful catalogs that were produced and actually are still available for consultation here in our bookshop, L'Art Imprimé en Suisse, I realized that there wasn't much about this idea of the novelties, because all these artists are constantly experimenting with new and old processes. And so for once, I was more intrigued to explore themes for this triennial. So with my colleague Anna Bleuler, who is also the mind behind this day of discussion, we decided that it was important to really go into depth of the work of one artist, in particular Michael Gunzburger, that you will probably have already seen the exhibition or you will see it. So the show Following the Crackling Sound. And also to highlight very political themes like protest and prison, and present other two artists that work with the photographic process, mainly also old photographic processes. I'm talking, for example, of Laurence Rasty, who explored the work of, collaborated with prisoners in La Chaux-de-Fonds. And as you cannot enter with a camera in a prison, so she was obliged to go back to the ancient photography processes of cyanotype and stenopy to really collaborate with them and have them become artists in their own right and share their stories and their visions. And Paz Errázuriz is a Chilean photographer who has been documenting for her entire life. She started as a self-taught photographer. The terrible years during the Pinochet dictatorship in Chile. And she really immersed herself in the communities that were at the margins, and especially focusing at sometimes in the topic of protest, following the people in the street, that also thanks to printing processes they were able to share their dissent towards the dictatorship. I hope you can explore and enjoy the exhibition. I think it's better if I pass the microphone to my colleague Anna Bleuler, who can tell you a little bit more words about the exhibition Follow the Crackling Sound and present the program for today. It's a very long list of super talented speakers and experts between art historians and artists and publishers and designers. And I really hope you can enjoy the discussion and don't hesitate to jump in the conversation. It's really thought as a table ronde where everyone has the right to intervene whenever they feel like doing it. Thank you very much.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here. Thank you to all the speakers to make this possible. It is very an honor to have you all here. And thank you to the public for being present today. I won't take a long time. I actually really probably just want to give a couple of technical information For video, for registration reason, it would be good that you switch your phone on mode avion, on modalité, how do you say, Flugmodus, modalité avion. And today is going to be organized in 3 blocks of exchange of the table ronde, which takes with each one 1 hour, and there will be breaks in between of 15 minutes, and at midday to 1 o'clock, there will be a light lunch served in the salle 2, in the room number 2, on the other side of the ground floor. So we also invite you, of course, to see the exhibition, as Federica said, by Pazer Azuris as well, Laurence Rassi, and of course, Michael Gunzbürger, who gave us the idea to create this 3rd edition of the General Estate, which is it's a tradition, so to say, started by Federica, which it's an exchange of of expertise and opinions and knowledge about certain topics which are raised by the exhibition itself. So in this case, of course, it's about printmaking in art. And I think it's better to start. And so I pass my microphone to Damian Christinger, who is going to moderate today's exchange. He's a curator, writer, and lecturer based in Zurich. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anna. And hello, everybody. Thank you for coming. That includes all of you. It's an oval table, not a round table, but I think this distinction will make sense when you have a look at the exhibition, Following the Crackling Sound, by Michael Gunzbürger as part of this triennial. You will see that there are a lot of acts involved, not in all, but in some of the prints that you'll encounter in the exhibition. So this act-shaped form of our little panel makes a lot of sense. As Federica already said, this is a oval table, round table, which means that please, I will be moderating, but you can raise your hand, ask questions, interject. You can also contradict us. There's a lot of different approaches and opinions on this table, so you can add to that. We will have 3 one-hour sessions and breaks in between. And as you know, with any such format, the breaks are, of course, the most important part of such endeavors. In the breaks, we can have one-to-one conversations. You can ask somebody, what did you actually mean when you said this? You can really delve into the conversations with us. It's an table extraordinaire. You already hear my French is shit, so that's one of the reasons we talk English today. And to my extreme left, just on the table, is Michael Gunzbürger, the artist, who invited us all and who made this exhibition. We will talk about the exhibition a little bit because it leads us straight into media res, into the middle of things. To his left is Tommy Wolfensberger. He's the printer and director and also founder of the Steindruckerei Wolfensberger in Zurich, which is one of the last existing big lithography presses in Europe, and a companion to many, many artists, global artists around the world, and one of the main collaboration partners of Michael Gunzbürger. To his left is Dirk Topke. He's the founding director of the Museum and Archive Dieter Roth and the acting director, the head of Griffelkunst e.V., and we will talk about what that is. It's probably the biggest association of artistic printmaking in Europe. It has 4,500 members, I believe, and they issue a variety of prints every year. It's the biggest publisher for art prints, for certain in Europe, maybe worldwide. We will discuss this. And Laurence Schmidlinge is the director of the, now my French, of the Cantonales Museum Wallis. How do I say that in French? Musée d'Art du Valais. And a specialist in print and drawing, an art historian, of course. Next to her, we have Inma Herrera. who's a Spanish artist and living in Helsinki, though, for quite a while now, in 2016. I'm not giving you the biographies, because if I would mention all the things these people did, we would be here 2 days, right? So please Google them. Inma works extensively in printmaking, although, and this is one of the starting points of our discussion, she really doesn't print anymore at the moment. So one of the contradictions we talk about. And then we have Theophile Glauser in my language, right? Who is, should I put it, an artistic designer or a designer who works primarily with printmaking, not with computers, with the atelier U-Zehn, and brings bookmaking and also design and printing into the fold of this discussion. And then next to me, on my left, is Christine Sandercock. She's the head of the art department and collections at the Zürcher Kantonalbank. Which has a huge collection of prints and also a collection of contemporary prints. Is one of the most important collectors of this genre that I know of. So this is our table. We have, like a silent like a church mouse, Leila Peacock in the back, an artist living in Basel now, right? What the heck? Moving to Basel, but still living in Zurich, who grew up in a printmaking environment. Her mother was a printmaker. She's an artist herself, and also a writer. And in this function, she's here. She will collect the things that we say and draft her own manifesta for printmaking in the future. So this is and this will then be published in the catalogue accompanying the exhibition of Michael Günzburger, follow the crackling sound here. And this is the basic endeavor that we try to undertake. We will talk about the present, about the state of the art of the genre. This is how this series is called. I like that. I also like the format that we have 3 sessions. We really have time. But we will not just talk about the past and the present. We will also talk a lot about the future of printmaking. And this was very important to you, Michael. This is why you convened us here. I mean, you got asked to help create a roundtable regarding the state of the art and refused to do that and said, I want to talk about the future of printmaking. Maybe you can explain to us very quickly why you're so adamant about the future of printmaking today.
That's where we're going. To put it in, is it working?
Yeah, but you have to take it close to you.
Okay. The future is where we're going. We can talk a lot about the past. We can talk a lot about what's happening, and printmaking has quite a long history that has been thoroughly researched, that has been thoroughly made, and it's a vast field. I mean, talking about print or printmaking is already kind of a strange way to start because there's so many different aspects of it. But I wanted to have a group, I wanted to have like a round table or an oval table of people who actually who produce, who collect, who make, who are here now at this moment working in the field and are part of this group. And I wanted to know where this is going, or what the ideas are, what are the visions, where do we want to go, and to work together, because what I feel a lot is that we need exchange, which is a classic topos, but that's where I wanted to go. And sorry, one thing, and it's not about, I didn't want a podium discussion where people are especially nice to each other, but where we can really challenge each other also, like where shall we go, where we can fight about that.
Understood.
So let's not take it personally if we contradict.
So this roundtable is happening in the context of your exhibition, and you will notice when you look at the exhibition that it's all print, which is apt. But it's not the prints that we think of when we think of prints historically, right? I mean, printmaking was always a means of creating multiples. Not just, but a lot of it was dedicated, created to create multiples. What we see here in your exhibition are what was called originals. Like every single print is different from another print maybe that was produced in the same series. And we're talking about material printing or material prints. I think the French word is a calligraphe. I'm not sure about that. But material printmaking, material prints, material print in my language. Can you just quickly say what that means? So when we talk about printmaking, your specific approach to it, that people understand what's happening in these prints.
So to put it in a nutshell, I just have a layer of ink and I put some organic or some material into the ink that I don't know what's going to happen with, how it reacts under pressure, put a paper on it and run it through the press.
So what kind of materials do we talk about here?
Well, what we have just behind you, that's actually that's the only repetitive. I will not talk about that because that's actually a lithography made from copper. It's like meat that was on the stone. But what's behind you, the colored one on the dark spot, that's collaborative works with cooks, chefs, cooking menus. Parts of the food goes into being created as a menu. Part of the food actually serves to make prints out of it. So like just behind you, Rita, on the green one behind you, you'll see the leftovers of small soft shell crab that was, instead of being eaten, was running through the press. So sometimes it's also brutal, but there's also, that's also a thing you can really think about what you're actually doing when you're making these things. Material print, as you used it, as it's, if you Google it, you'll get nowhere. It's actually a term I try to bring it on because there's nothing. If you look on Wikipedia, there's a crappy article about running nails through the press. I think I have to work on that when I say that. But it's really about creating a situation where you don't know what's coming out at the other end. That's my basic approach to printmaking there.
This is also what led to the title of the show, Follow the Crackling Sound, right? I mean, I imagine a soft shell crab makes quite a crack when you run it through the...
Fantastic sound.
It's fantastic sound.
Fantastic sound. I mean, this was already going to the edge for me, but it's like a soft shell crabs. I mean, a hard shell crab would make a different sound, definitely. But also sugar makes a great sound, or salt makes a great sound. Anything that goes under it, I listen a lot these days while things go through the press. And if you've seen it, you've seen a champagne bottle exploded in the press and on the top floor. That's also quite an interesting sound. And yeah.
So you don't just look at prints, but you also listen to the printmaking process. And that kind of already tells you something before the print then comes out of the press?
It tells me something. It tells you that something happens to the ink. Somehow I see the ink as the one thing that I'm focusing on when I do these material prints, because it's a layer that is actually in art history. It's people hardly ever talk about ink. They always talk about print block, and then they talk about the paper that is there. But what's actually, to me as an artist, what's the interesting part is actually this smeary, slimy layer of greasy matter that is transferred, that is split, that is pushed, that is scratched. There's a lot happening to that layer, and without that you wouldn't have a trace. You would probably have an embossing, you would leave a simple mark in the paper, but the actual image is made by the ink, and so this layer of ink has to be sculpted. I see this really as a sculpture that is thinner, that is thicker, that makes the image in the end in this material printing technique.
Part of the exhibition making process here at the museum is that the artists are asked to incorporate works from the collection of the museum. And I mean, you, Laurence, worked here quite a while, and you are now the director of this museum for quite a bit. It has a sizable collection of artworks, and a lot of those artworks are prints. But of course, maybe not prints in the way that Michael Günzburger is now talking about, in this sculptural distribution of ink on scratched and processed surfaces, but a different idea of prints. But could you tell us just very quickly a little bit about the collection here and the prints that are in the collection and how you want to work with them in the future?
Thank you. Yeah, sure. So the collection is really a labor of love. In 1862, a bunch of people from Le Locle, they started to buy artworks from the artists directly, and it actually started as a painting and sculpture collection that was attached to a watchmaking museum, and little by little the Société des Beaux-Arts was created, and it's more after the Second World War that the interest in printmaking was more and more explicit, and that the collection started to really gather, obviously, like the super famous names from the 19th century and early 20th century. But we have, for example, and you will discover it in the installation of Laurence Rasti, Giambattista Piranesi, Carceri di Invenzione, from 1760. And also Michael selected one of the oldest artwork that we have in the collection. I will actually ask him a little bit more about how he made that selection in a moment. The idea here is, yes, you're right that perhaps Michael's approach is the most experimental that has entered the collection through the annual édition d'artistes, that we, every year since the 1980s, the museum invites a Swiss artist to make an edition that has a kind of like more accessible price, and that anybody can purchase, and it's a way to support the programming of the museum, because it gives free access for the entire year and all sorts of other advantages. And it's true that the making of that annual edition was really something else, because it was a performance. Michael probably doesn't like the title of that event, Chin Chin Print, but I thought it was pop and fun, and sometimes you have to be pop, and so it was really apéro with a bunch of lovely people, and the mind behind the cocktail, he conceived a special cocktail with absinthe, which is the kind of like national, local pride in Le Locle, and we're very grateful to Michael, because he also activated an ancient press that is still in the museum and was kind of like forgotten for a while. And so it was really the leftovers of the cocktails of the people that attended this event. A selection of those fragments ended up in a Michal's artwork, and actually it's not hanged yet. It will be very soon, but there are some cards over there where you can find and see the image. And I love his work and I love what he does, and I think we want to go, talking about the future, we want more and more to go towards that direction, and to how can I say, undust, remove the dust around this discipline that I think deserves to become more and more performative and contemporary. And Michel's approach is exactly what we are looking for in the future.
So de-dusting a collection is, yeah, it's part of the job description. Chris sent so we know each other, that's why I call it Chris. You are, yeah, the head of the collection, of a huge collection at the bank. And I imagine within that collection, there's quite a bit of prints, right? Can you talk a little bit about what the collection consists of and what kind of prints are in the collection now? And like maybe the more historical part and a little bit more of what you are now collecting since you became head of collection.
Thank you. Yes, maybe just to sort of give you the larger picture, we collect, as the Zürcher Kantonalbank, we collect Zurich contemporary art, which means that the artists have a connection to Zurich. They don't necessarily have to live in Zurich or be Swiss even. It's just somewhere in their biography that Zurich is part of their life. And that's because we assume that because of this Zurich connection, that they are also in touch with other people from the Zurich area, and that we have sort of a larger Zurich art scene through this, yes, Zurich connection. The bank has actually always bought art for the last 155 years, but without a concept. So we got a whole load of variety of different artwork, some very high standing, mainly paintings, but then also some very locally produced yes, artwork, paintings of flowers and things like that, which we are sort of at the moment, yes, sorting a little bit. But for the last 20 years, we have been focusing on Zurich contemporary art. What we try and focus on is also that we get the broad spectrum of all materials, techniques that are involved in this Zurich contemporary art scene. So we go from paintings to drawings, photography, videos, stills, etc. But we also have printing techniques that we buy. And yes, maybe to pick up the more the historical side, we did have quite a lot of prints, lithographies, silkscreen prints, sort of from the 70s and 80s. I think there was a time that was very popular for banks to buy this kind of art. I guess the reason for that was that they weren't too expensive. You could buy a lot and decorate. I really feel it was a form of decoration for the walls, also for the long corridors, for example. But it wasn't really a commitment to art. And that's why I think these, yes, prints with high editions were quite popular, not only in our collection, but also in other institutional collections. With our contemporary art concept now, we prefer artworks that don't have a very high edition or that are originals, like you mentioned before, just because it's also the innovation behind the whole development that is interesting. Yes, and that's, we give it the same consideration as we do oil paintings or photography or videos, just because I find that's a very important field as well that has to be supported. Yes, maybe I should also say that as the Cantonal Bank, we belong to the Canton of Zurich, which also means that we have a public service mandate. And part of that is that we support, and yes, we support the cultural and economical development of the canton. So that's also part of the whole aspect.
So you said, yeah?
Can I ask something about that? I've heard, I don't know if it's a rumor, but maybe that's the opportunity to ask that, that banks actually buy less prints because they have less walls in their offices. So the question also goes to, like, how does the architecture of these spaces actually influence the collecting activity of the banks?
Well, I wouldn't say they buy less prints because they have less walls. They probably buy less art in general. It's not reduced to prints. Yes, that can be a problem. I know some institutional collections, they focus on art in architecture, so big, huge works of art, but there are only a few of them, and they're then fixed in the buildings. In our case, it's actually more the opposite, that we try to focus on mobile art, so that we can also, yes, use it in other places as well when we have to. For example, when a branch closes or something or has to be redone, and we have to reconsider the whole concept within that branch. Yeah, it just depends on the institution, really, and their focus as well. And we don't have, yes, I mean, the large offices, that's also a direction that it's sort of going in at the moment, but it's not always the case. Yeah.
You said that you, with the new concept, like 20-year-old concept of collecting contemporary art, you put the same consideration, you said, to prints. And that within that, the ones you select, that the aspect of innovation is an important part of it. And you said, like, you put the same consideration as to photography or painting, right? And that brings me to this traditional idea of a hierarchy of the arts in how people collect it, right? And we had this small discussion yesterday about how it was that when you were the head of the department of works on paper, like prints and drawings, it was not the same as being the director of the department of painting, right? And I mean, now you're the director of a museum, but that used to be you, right? The head of prints and drawing. Why do you think I believe it's just a short while that this hierarchy was actually active in European art history. But why do you think this hierarchy existed, and do you think it's changing right now or not?
I don't think it's changing. I think it still exists. I think it's quite a long story why prints and drawings are seen as less interesting than paintings and sculptures. I think, first of all, paintings and sculptures were the main. I mean, we have to go back far in the history of art, because it's also a structure that was in the academies, and you were planned to become a painter or sculptor, but not a printmaker. That was something else, and so it was considered as such in museums, because museums reflect the production of art, and that's why I think we created those places called print rooms or drawing rooms. So, because we think first that we need to take care in a very specific manner of these artworks, because most of them are on paper, so we need to handle them differently than a painting or a sculpture. I also think that they need to be shown in a different condition than paintings and sculptures. We usually here it's very special, but Michael gave, I think, it's permission to have the works in plain and full light.
I wanted it like
that. Yeah. So that's the exhibition has been made with Michael, but usually we have very darker space, we have very small space, so it needs lots of different conditions. So not all museums can have print rooms and drawing rooms. Not all museums can have curators who are specialized in the field. So it's cheaper. I mean, a print, it's cheaper. It's multiple usually. You can have only one work from a plate, but usually you would do a series of proofs. And that's, I think, some of the reasons why we look at them as minor works. Although some prints have been very key in the history of art. So for me, who grew up as a curator in a print room, I never understood the distinction that's made between all works of art. For me, a print is the same as a painting, although it's a different process who permits to make a print and who it's a different history. So also you need to know to understand how the prints, why the print is made in this way and what it brings to the work of the artist. And today I think it hasn't changed. I think when you go to an exhibition, if the artist hasn't made a big work of a big corpus of works in the printmaking field, you won't see them. You will see prints in the Valeton show. You will see prints in a Marcus Retz show. You will see prints from Michael because he does that as one of his main field of experimentation. Otherwise, you don't have works of art, works on paper in the middle of a show like this. It's very rare, and I think it's because we created a market for the prints. I think it kind of put it aside of the rest of the artworks. I don't know. Maybe I'm a bit nebulous, but it's hard to explain why it's not considered and why it's not considered better today.
I would like to. I mean, Michel called upon us to contradict each other, right? And I will contradict you right now. So please keep the mic. I believe it's the opposite. I believe. For curators and directors of museums, there might be this hierarchy. I believe that for art historians in academia, there might be this distinction. I mean, art, and we always have to say there's a global art history, which is distinct from the European art history. And we talk about European art history now, because if we talk about printing globally, this is a very different picture. But if we talk about Europe, there's this movement, and Le Locle is a good place to have a look at that, because it wasn't just anarchist, it was also democratic, a very strong democratic movement here. Art used to be commissioned by nobility and clergy, right? And it was for the very few. So only a very few people had access to art, unless it was the wall painting in a church. And the relevance, for example, of Dürer and why Dürer became the first artist, so to speak, for a wider audience is that he focused on printmaking, right? And the history since then, and with the rise of cities, with the rise of the bourgeoisie, and them wanting to participate in prints. So for most people, prints are much more important than paintings. You are the exception, you're in a museum today, right? But most people don't go to museums, but they might have a lithography of a print at home. They might have had a lithography of a print in their office in the bank. So this is what I mean in the hierarchy. The museum and the history of democracy, or the democratization of art, goes only through printmaking, right? No?
I'm not sure if that's true. I think when I worked in Vevey, au cabinet cantonal des estampes and Musée Yéniche Vevey, many visitors came to the print shows saying, "Where is the painting?" So I think I understand what you say about being democratic, and I think that's something very, very important to the printmaking history. But I think, in fact, what you witness when you're in a museum is that the expectation regarding what you're going to see are not towards prints, but paintings, because painting is the true and real artwork. And I know that people can get cheaper artworks when they buy a print and they can access the art market, and that's the first way to become a collector. I think this is true. I think it does not concern many, many, many people. And I still think that people will value more a painting than a print.
But that's the thing, right? Value. So this is, I mean, if I read the newspapers today, there's no more art criticism happening. Exhibitions will not be mentioned. But whenever there is this new record, you know, this Picasso sold for $40 million, this is what the newspapers talk about. And this is what people expect. They expect to see value for the hefty entrance fees in most Swiss museums, right? So it's a question of market, not so much as... Anyway,
Yeah.
So that's one of the problems,
time.
right? And this is where you come into play, Tommy. If you work, so I think about 75% of prints in this exhibition have been made by the artist in collaboration with you as the crafts person, right? And you have this print workshop where you produce prints. And you produce multiples. A lot of artist multiples are produced in your workshop. Don't you feel bad when you do something with Michael, which then is an original and works against the democratization of art?
No, not at all. I think I just would like to follow you, because I had a lot of phone calls last week with Wade Guyton, and that's an artist who, in the end, what I would say, we talk about the future here. I don't know where the future is, but he don't care if it's painted or printed. He likes to produce good art. And that's what the feeling I have when I come here. I know some of these works, but I'm still excited to see them. And of course, is it print? Because it only exists one time. To be honest, I don't care. And of course, it sounds a bit strange, because I'm a printer, and my business is actually to produce more than one. And but my future starts tomorrow. The most important artists I have there, the two guys who are coming tomorrow, and I have to take care about them. And some of them, one work I will start producing next week is for you, and that will be a very high edition. And I will finish tomorrow a work of Rebecca Steiger, and where we have one print and one ghost print. So the reality is we have to be focused in doing good art. And if it's, the declaration is also very interesting. How do you name a finished product? So that's, and Wade Guyton, he is really, he looks a bit like you, really cool, a cool guy. And the declaration is also cool. He just want to do good art. And I think that should be the main reason why the people come in the studio. And I will have every week different artists, but the situation is extremely the same. It's like reading a Charles Dickens book. It's the big expectation, you know. They want to do something, and if you print 10 pieces, then it's 10 times the same joke. So it has to be a good joke, otherwise it gets boring. And I'm very glad that I still can print high editions, because I have the same feeling. We need to produce art that you can afford, but it's also cool to have Günz on my side. That, yeah, we know what we see here. Okay, was that a correct answer?
That I know, but it was an interesting one, right? Michel, do you want to interject, or
just to put it up as a resume? I mean, that's what I like about working with print workshops like yours, that it's not about being dogmatic in the first sense about what it makes, what making art makes. It's always like when I talk a lot about print, but it's a lot about it's in the end, it's about making good artwork, as you say. And if you become dogmatic in the way you're doing something, you can become really not funny, and that's the worst as a thing. And it's coming back also to what you said about conservation and how this is also shown here. It's also about being not dogmatic in thinking about time, how long this works can actually survive, or what the use of art in the end is. You were mentioning it's in people's home. I grew up with a high edition, I told it Dirk yesterday, of a Juan Miro print my father bought in the 1980s. I think it's 1,300. It's one of 1,300 that was in our living room. And to me, that was the thing to look at, because I broke my leg and I was stuck on the couch. But it was really, it took me a long time to actually understand. I had a lot of time with that print, and it's probably fallen to dust by now, because it was always in full sunshine in the window, and I think that's really okay that it's gone, that it's kind of used up, that like we have to stop thinking about conserving. Or we can also say, or as an artist, I can also say, okay, this painting, if I put it on show like this will be gone within 10 years. And that's my offer. And that's it.
So one of your clients, Tommy, is Dirk Dobke's organization, Griffelkunst e.V., which is a Kunstverein. It's an association where you pay a pretty small fee from a Swiss point of view. How much is it?
200 a year.
200 euros a year, right? And 4,500 people pay 200 euros a year and receive what in return?
For the fee, they already receive 4 original prints a year. So each quarter, 1 print. So it is so this is a basic democratic idea of spreading art. And so we, after these statements of Michael and Tommy, I could say it is the exact point. It is not about art. The art is on the highest level, but the way to distribute it, to bring it to the people. This is the point, and this is our point since 100 years, to make it accessible, to get everybody to art on this very low price level, so far away from any market or any speculation. And all the artists get the same fee. They get the same honorarium for the work when they work for us. If they're one of the world championship guys, or if they're just fresh from the university, it doesn't matter. They all get the same fee for what they do for us. And the members pay, actually, it rised up even. It is now 45 euros the print, and they get 4 prints for sure. Let's say they already bought them somehow with their fee, and then they can buy on top, so they can buy series. And so it is all about teaching art in a way and make it accessible.
I mean, in a way, one could say that painting and sculpture and all this original art is where people go to the museum to see it, but prints are a way to bring art to the homes of people, because a lot of people in a working class town like Lülöckel might not be able to afford a sculpture by a contemporary artist, which exists only once, but they might be able to afford 200 euros a year and receive 4 artworks for that amount of money. You're also the founding director of the Dieter Roth Museum and Archive in Hamburg.
Yes.
There's a beautiful book, by the way, in the library bookshop of this museum on his books and multiples. And so you have this kind of dual perspective now, right? You are with Griffelkunst and you know very intimately the work of Dieter Roth. You worked with him before he died. This was your kind of initiation into becoming a curator in a way. And Dieter Roth had these very specific ideas about multiples, printing, and originals, right? Can you talk a little bit about that and how you reconcile it with your function now of bringing art to the masses?
Yeah, I think it's as you said, it's for me, for my personal biography, it was very, Diderot was playing a big role, a central role, you could say. And I think also for art, and especially for printmaking, he's one of the most, probably one of the most famous guys in the last century, you could say. Because if you look at the idea of Druckgrafik, of prints, it is always that it came from the, as you said, Dürer, from the idea of reproduction, of getting the images to the people. Then in the 60s, 70s of the last century, it became more an own field. So this kind of what we call Originalgrafik, original graphic, or how it is translated ever. So the idea to bring the artist to the press and to collaborate with the printer, like with Tommy. I think Tommy is a master example of that procedure. And for Diderot, to say in the 60s, 70s, on the graphic boom, there was really a big hype at this time to produce graphics. Every gallery had its own editions, and Kunstvereine, art associations made their print editions and so on. And then he turned the whole idea a bit in a different way, and thought about how to collaborate with the printer, and also how to change the understanding of this print. And this is a bit near to Michael's way now, because he said, okay, using materials which are not permanent, which are not steady, is a kind of way he would like to try to find out what comes out if he prints with chocolate, or if he pressed out any kind of food on the print, or put a salami slice of salami between two papers and call it a sundown, and so stuff like that. So the idea of decaying, and the idea of the process of an artwork, that an artwork is not just a fixed thing which is done by the artist and signed and ready to be put on the wall, but more the understanding of an artwork which is still meant as a process of something which is happening and just going on or down or whatever, but it's changing somehow. And I think this is the main change Dieter made probably in the 60s. Not alone. There were a couple of guys around him, but he was really intense in this field, and what especially in his understanding of art, in my opinion, is that he started many of his ideas and of his artist concepts over the printmaking. This is an interesting thing. So nowadays, it is, for many artists, it's clear that he's a painter, sculptor, whatever, and beside he makes some prints. And in Diderot's case, it was vice versa. He started to experiment with the prints, and then it goes into the original field. This is a very special thing. So that was my thought, to make a big show of the Diderot prints some years ago. We had it in Hamburg 3 years ago. It was 22. And we had the complete Diderot prints, and just the number shows how important it was for him. It was a show of 1,087 prints in over 4 floors at Harald Falkenberg Foundation. So it is really, you can really see that he was completely into it. And he started it when he was a pupil, and he did it until the last day with different layers or kinds of understanding, and always change it. But it was always the question of what comes next, or what do we print next? Always this open mind behind it to see what comes out. What comes out if I put something on the press, and as Michael explained it now, and just press a bottle of champagne, and let's see what comes out. And I think this is the understanding Dieter did, of founded somehow.
I mean, Laurence talked about this, like the department of prints is also being a conservatory decision, right? Because prints need to be conserved in a way. And we just learned that Michael is very much in the tradition of Diderot. And I mean, these prints might be deteriorating. We don't know. I mean, Tommy, are they going to be around for 1,000 years?
Is that the question?
Yes.
Yeah, the question is, should it?
Okay, yeah.
No, I think that's that.
Should it, yeah? But as a curator, Anna, I mean, Michael decided, he said, this was my decision. I don't want to have them behind glass. I don't want to have them safe. This is a nightmare for a museum.
on the side of the artist, anyway, in the sense that it is a very conceptual choice, because I think the key word here, it was which Michael used a couple of times before, is sculpture. I mean, you need to have also to be able to see the sculptural side of this work, the materiality of this work, which is about the layering of different material on the paper with the ink, with the food, with the salt, and etc. And these behind glass, you can't get it. So we decided we don't care about conservation. We care about the possibility of the viewer to really interact with the work as it is.
Well, I imagine it to be very interesting to then deal with the insurance company, right? That, but these are maybe not the important question, or are they?
No, they are a very important question, but you have to be honest. And Michael, he is honest. And I printed many editions now with Zilla Leutenegger on a very, very poor paper, on the magazine paper, and everybody knows that this paper is in a low quality. I think what we should not do is lying. But I think we don't lie. It's a nice exhibition. They are hanging without any protection, and that's correct. And if the goal is to keep it for 200 years, then you have to tell it everybody, and that could be part of the price. But here is part of the price that it will change, and that's okay.
So Chris, if you buy for a bank, and I think the point of a bank is to conserve value, right? I'm not good with banks, but one of the reasons that banks exist is to keep the value of things for its clients, right? Are you allowed to buy a print by Zilla Leutenegger whose paper you know will deteriorate in 10 years for your collection?
I think we bought about 6 of them or something.
But they will not go to exchange.
Yeah.
Yeah, then we are back to intro, I think, and you know what you buy.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's part of the process. And I think that the process is also very interesting. And our art collection isn't meant as an investment, because contemporary art is, I mean, investing your money in contemporary art is, in my opinion, not a very good idea. You have to buy something because you love it and because it gives you good emotional return, yes. And even if the price plummets in the end, or the value plummets, you have to enjoy the work of art. And as I said, we have this public service mandate that enables us as well to support and the cultural development. So that's not a focus point that we have. Obviously, we don't want our artwork to be destroyed. We don't have museum conditions to show our art. And when we have people walking past with their bags, with their laptop bags and their coats, and occasionally you have a scratch or something like that. I mean, most people are very careful. They're also conscious of the fact that there's artwork on the wall, but it can still happen. As I said, they might have their bags with them or something. But yes, I feel that we should buy this kind of art and see what happens. But we do try, I mean, like the Zilla, the newspaper prints, we have them behind museum glass. We do that, even if it is nicer, you're closer if you don't have the glass in between, but those sort of precautions we do take.
Also by a big gallery, has this, try to get these conditions.
So, I mean, it seems to be that a lot of contemporary and experimental printmaking goes within that tradition that was kind of co-founded by Dieter Roth, where the changes in materiality and material are part of the fun, the joke, as Tommy says, of the relevance of the artwork itself. I mean, there's radical solutions to that. And if I look at Inma Herrera's last two shows, Inma is an artist and printmaker. You specifically work with print making, but there were not any prints in the show. So what did you show in the show if you didn't show prints? That's also a radical solution to the problem of conservation, right?
Yeah. It's
Just if you go to the website, you'll see the images of the show, then you'll understand what I mean.
well, I mean, I think that in my case, the choice of not having prints or working less with prints, it comes more from like personal need and artistic interest of digging into the origin of things that I have. Like, I came to realize that this is what is connected with, I mean, like what I need to research about. Meaning that, well, if we all know the complexities of dwelling into the printing process, and maybe also because of the kind of education that I had, that it was quite orthodox in the sense, and I think that it's so interesting to be here at Mikael's show because it's all about losing control. And we were having a conversation also last night of how, and the way I see as well, that the, well, let's say the training of an artist that wants to work with print, it's all about learning tacit facts, training your body, and also getting used to controlling things, controlling the behavior of materials, but then also controlling the behavior of your own body. I mean, whether you're drawing with your hands or with some other part of your body, but it's all about understanding interactions of materials and surfaces that are in constant transformation, but that there's a moment in which, well, if you wish to reach that place, you feel that, okay, now this is controlled, and then now I can either reproduce it or just, well, even if you just want to get one imprint of that. But it's a result of a very complex process that, to me, it mirrors the complexity of process of life on another level. So the reason why I stopped from working with paper for a while, even now I'm getting back to it, is because I just thought that it was necessary, and I still think it's today, to explore all those potentialities that there is in that process. That actually, I mean, like listening to what everybody was saying, I was just like thinking, I mean, in relation to paint or sculpture, I mean, it's actually a medium that really shares, I mean, they are touching. It's just that maybe, I think that we are now in a moment where the walls that create like separate compartments in the field of arts are really blurring. But it's just like, it's the same state of mind in a way. And at the same time, as a printmaker, you train yourself also to think in a specific way, right? So, but then, because I was thinking that who, and I'll get back to your question, but like somebody who doesn't know about print could say that this is not paint as well, everything we're having here around. We're also painting in a way. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I say I paint with printing presses, but that's this discussion about where you put your focus on printing, or where's it printing. We had a discussion recently where you said printing is all about reproduction. And I said, like, for me, it's this what I described about where the ink jumps or when the ink is splits. That's where my interest in print is. But I think it's not interesting to discuss what is printing, but it's actually what you can actually do with that, I say, physical condition of printing, which is about contact, which is about traces, which is about tracks, which opens a huge metaphoric field. That's why I think it's an interesting part also, because it's super rich also in terms of collaboration and terms of dependencies that come from one to another.
Yeah, that's how I see it.
And I think painting is pretty boring compared.
Yeah,
Before we delve into that, I just wanted to produce another radical solution to the problems that we talked about. Théophile, you kind of circumnavigate this problem by pretending not to produce art. So what do you produce when you print?
Yeah, so first, sorry for my English. It's really hard to me to explain stuff. But yeah, I come from my education is in graphic design, so I'm not too in art. But yeah, now I'm a bit working with offset printing, so that's good solution for me to not to think about the art process, but how you can, with this process, to produce a lot of prints, how you can use this process to make art. Or it's also a question of the book. What's the use of a book today with internet and stuff like that? And in my practice here, then I decided to start to work directly on plate. So it can be arts, and this stuff comes from nowhere. I mean, and I don't know if I'm clear enough, but
This is this magic of printing, right? That it materializes in a process, in a way. I mean, there's material, and you work directly on the plate. This is kind of your speciality, but it comes then out of nothing in a way, but right through this process, these tracks and traces, this materiality that Günz mentioned. And you say, so you do this because you want to think about what the book still is? Or why do you do this?
no, yeah, because books, I mean, we don't read books anymore. I mean, because of internet and digital, this digital area. So my idea was to create like a kind of museum in the book. So you can visit this, because books you can put in the street directly where you want, or you can give to people. So it's a kind of museum that you can give to people. So that was a bit also the idea, to think like in the book you can see there is like big plates, we print in big format, and then we fold the posters and we put directly on the book. So you have like kind of art hanging in the book.
So then the book becomes also a place of exhibition making and of thinking about printing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we introduced now, and cleverly so, a lot of cliffhangers, right? We will then follow up on these cliffhangers, question what is actually printing? Is it painting with different methods? Why do we still do multiples? Should we do that? The image and image making. You also talked about how the body interacts, collaborations, and bookmaking, printmaking as a process of reflection on digital media as well. This and much more after lunch. So, as I said, please follow up. The breaks are the most important part of such a day. We will have a break to have lunch, and then we'll resume our discussions along these cliffhangers we just introduced at 1 o'clock? 1:15. 1:15. See you at 1:15. Thank you.